So Misery is, it depends on what perspective you're coming from.
Misery is a great story.
Misery has always been one of my favorite Stephen King stories. I fell in love with it when I was first introduced to it in the mid-90s.
It's a story of survival.
Obsession, addiction.
It's a story of mental illness and conflict.
And the depths of human depravity in a lot of ways.
It encompasses almost all the human emotions in one fell swoop.
Misery is the story of a writer
He's very quiet and reserved.
who has been found after a horrible car wreck by his number one fan.
A crazed fan.
The stereotypical obsessive, overbearing fan.
Annie is a very complicated woman.
Who is presented the opportunity to essentially keep her darling, her favorite author, captive in her home.
Her views of the world and relationships are a little skewed.
A character who is trying to write her own story, in that she's trying to finish a book the way she wants it to be written.
She just doesn't know what to do with all of that.
And force him to write the novel of her dreams through torture.
It is the sort of thing that could happen in the newspapers tomorrow.
I don't know if in the 80s that was such a huge thing. Now that we're in the modern era of Comic-Cons, it seems to be a lot more common than it used to be. Maybe Annie was a trendsetter.
Ooh, turning Annie off when you leave the room.
The challenges for me are, because I've had a break,
Trying to slowly build the tension and suspicion within the character.
it's a lot of dialogue to remember, a lot of blocking.
My job is to make sure that it's a cohesive picture, but to make sure it's a cohesive picture means tweaking the minutiae,
Just the nuts and bolts are a challenge.
how they stand on stage and what props they're holding, and you've got to initiate big changes through the butterfly flap of these little tiny tweaks here and there.
It's really important to me to bring Annie to life, to make her a full character.
Annie switches. Annie's got some mental illness. She's up and down, and from scene to scene, you really got to nail that, coming in with that energy and leaving with that energy, and then leaving it there and getting ready for the next scene where maybe you're going from happy dancing around the house to being deeply depressed.
And to make her someone that's pitiable, relatable, and terrifying.
And hopefully if you did it right, it all comes out together and the show just works without you at some point.
What isn't it like?
Oh, it's great. It's great.
BCT has been a lot of fun to work with so far. I've worked with some community theater in Wisconsin, and then some also in Washington State, and this has been really interesting for me in the way that it operates.
I've learned a lot already.
The sort of thing that you'll learn a lot doing. A lot of us wear a lot of hats.
It is fantastic. It's a hustle working with Blaine Community Theater.
We're a bit of a vagabond theater.
We rehearse in church basements. We rehearse at the library.
The people are so resourceful and so helpful and so supportive.
We're always on the move, trying to figure it out and piece it together, and that's part of what makes it so exciting.
Doing that, you end up learning a lot more of the roles within the theater than you might get the chance to in other places.
I always learn something every production I do. I learn not just about myself or about the play or about a character, but an actual skill. During Weird Sisters, I learned to sew and was able to help with the costume.
So it's been a really positive experience for me. I'm really excited.
It is something.
It took life and said, darn, I had a brilliant line I was gonna say. Ah!
Yeah, I would say
Ugh, this is so uncomfortable. Okay,
Megan.
gotcha.
Misery is doing these interviews. No.